Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Beauty Outlaw. Today I have a legendary guest. Her name is Jan Marini. She's a powerhouse innovator and someone who has been shaking up the industry for decades. She's the brains behind her own company. She's a woman that put the science-first skincare on the map, and she's not afraid to push boundaries. Whether it's with her formulations or going toe-to-toe with big pharma, we're going to dive into real stuff today, the politics behind the science, and what's next in skincare. So welcome again to the Beauty Outlaw, and this is going to be a great episode. Okay, everybody, before we get started with the episode, I have to give a shout out to my sponsor, SaunaSpace, your go-to for full spectrum infrared therapy right in your own home. That's what I love about it. I have one here at the office, at the spa, and I have one at home. There are 3 key benefits this little beauty gives you. I love it. It detoxifies you and gives you recovery by deep penetrating near red light. Oh, it supports cellular detox, muscle recovery, and overall skin health. You get way better sleep. When I get in this little guy before I go to bed, I sleep like a baby. It reduces stress, leaving you refreshed and energized. Not only that, but it's all about the longevity. It enhances collagen production, reduces inflammation, and promotes that outlaw glow that you all want. So I have an exclusive deal for you in the show notes. You get 10% off of this little beauty when you go to SaunaSpace. Go to the link, type in the coupon code Beauty Outlaw, and you get an additional 10% off. Order yours today. They even give you a 100-day money back guarantee. Go now, check them out. Love them. It's the best thing you'll ever spend your money on. Okay, so another sponsor here is HealMD. You know how I love them. And if you don't know anything about them, go to the show notes. HealMD is making big moves when it comes to the science backed behind acne and other types of natural relaxation techniques. They have a melatonin. This one's my favorite right here, stress and pain. Check it out today. Love them. HealMD. Love you guys. Thank you for being a sponsor. And thank you for making me run my practice so much smoother by lessening anxiety with my patients. Okay, little news before we get started with the Beauty Outlaw today. I want everybody to buy their tickets to the International Congress of Aesthetic and Spa Show. I'm going to be there. I love this show, been going for 25 years. It's my favorite. So if you're a registered nurse or you're an esthetician, you need to go to this show. It's in the show notes right now, so go there, buy your ticket. I'm going to be there. This year I'm going to be a guest speaker. I'm going to be talking about the transition of an esthetician moving into registered nurse, what that looks like. I will break it down for you. So I'll see you at the show. Get your ticket now. Hi, Jan. Thank you so much for joining the Beauty Outlaw. You know, you're one of my faves ever.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that's lovely to hear.
You're one of my favorites. And we shared before, I'm going to share a funny story. So Jan, it was like 8 months in the works. Jan was coming on the podcast and we did this great podcast. We talked about so many things because her and I are been around a while. So we knew we went way back on things. It was a great podcast. And then, oh my gosh, I didn't hit record. And I had to call Jan and say, Jan, oh my gosh, we had this great podcast, but I didn't hit record. And she was so gracious. She made it happen again quickly. And we are rewriting history right now. So for all of you that missed out on our great vibe, we're going to bring it to you today. So welcome again, my friend Jan.
I said to myself, if this is the worst thing that happens to me today, it's a great day.
I love it.
And talking to you is such a pleasure. Being able to do it a second time, I mean, I can't complain.
Hey, a little mini friendship was made out of the whole thing, which is so awesome. I love that. So Jan, one of the things that I know about you already is your history, where you started, where you grew up, but I want you to reshare that. And one thing that I think is really special about it is it's what everyone else should do. You didn't let the trials and tribulations stop you in life. You didn't identify yourself by those things. You use them to propel yourself forward. You used those weaknesses or failures or things that had happened in your life that weren't gifted to you, and you turned them into success. So share us your journey. You grew up in San Diego. So share us the
San Diego, and I was born at Mercy Hospital. And actually, I guess that's San Diego County, but I was born at Mercy Hospital. And my mom and my dad took me home to this little one-bedroom house. I had three brothers. This house was at the end of a dirt road. And they put my crib in an alcove in the hallway. So back then, hallways or areas had a little indented alcove where they'd put a phone on the wall with a stool. And that's where my little bassinet went. And my three brothers slept out in a dilapidated garage. And when I say dilapidated, when you would look at this garage, you couldn't understand how it was even standing. And it had a dirt floor. So my parents put three army cots on this dirt floor, and that's where my brothers slept. And we were very, very poor. If there's, I guess you could put us underneath poor, almost down to the level of poverty, but we were poor.
You're poor folk.
And then when I was 8 years old, my father died. Now, at that point, for the most part, my brothers were gone because my oldest brother was 17 and a half years older than me. My middle brother was 15 years older, and my youngest brother was 8.5 years older. But if we were poor at that point, after my father's died, we were really poor. And I can tell you, Jerry, that I can remember times where there wasn't enough to eat. I know that for dinner sometimes, my mother would take dried bread, crumple it up, put it in a bowl, and put milk over it with sugar. Actually, I kind of like that. But that would be dinner. And I'm not talking about this because I want anybody to feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for me. I've been very blessed. I've lived a really wonderful life. But I think my point is that I don't want to be defined by that. I didn't want to be defined by that. And I really believe that virtually anyone can elevate themselves out of those kinds of circumstances. And so here I am today.
Yes, here you are today. Jan, what became of your mother? Is she still around?
No, my mother lived to the ripe old age of 94.
Wow.
She's been dead for, quite a few years now. She's born in 1910.
Wow. She's a hardy one.
My doctor told me the other day and said that today women, if they live a healthy lifestyle, can expect to live at least 4 years longer than their mother. So that means I should go to at least 98. I got a long ways to go. Lots of products to develop.
Did your mom inspire you at all in the skincare realm, or was she into that at all?
No, actually, I guess the best way I could describe my mother is that my mother was very introverted, and she really had very little confidence in herself. And she was a smart woman. She had, I think, a tremendous intellect, but she never really used it. So she did a lot of menial jobs, which is one of the reasons, that we barely got by. Now, she certainly did the very best that she could do. And what is it that inspires us as kids? Because why is it that in a family you can have one child that really doesn't necessarily have ambition or doesn't necessarily excel, and then you have other siblings who can't wait to get out and they can't wait to have a career? And I think that I was always very driven, even from a young age, wanting to accomplish something. And in terms of skincare, there's kind of a family legend. And the family legend is that one of the first words I ever said was dehydrated. Now, I don't know if that's really true or not, but I have always been focused on skincare. I don't know why. Maybe it's genetic. I did have a great grandfather in Sweden who was a physician, and he wrote a number of textbooks. But I've always had that focus. And I think one of the reasons is my three brothers all suffered from acne. And so I grew up looking at them and thinking, gee, what a kind of a stigma and how it affected them, and was afraid that I would have acne. Now, I was very fortunate because for most of my teenage years, I was in the 1 percentile where I never had an acne lesion. I never broke out ever. And it wasn't until I turned 19 that I developed severe cystic acne. I became an Accutane failure. Now, Accutane, I was not approved for a while, so it wasn't when I was 19, but I was in the last test group with Stanford University before it was approved for full prescription use. And it was a miracle, clear skin. But about a year or so after that, my acne started to come back. And that's very common with Accutane. Accutane is not a cure.
No.
Accutane puts people in remission. We don't know how long remission is going to be. But I went on Accutane a second time, a much higher dose. And again, clear skin, and then my acne came back. Now, that's not the only reason that I was interested in skincare, but that was one of the reasons because my focus has always been on common skin concerns, whether it's acne, whether it is skin rejuvenation, whether it's rosacea, whether it's discoloration, all the kinds of concerns that individuals generally have.
And that led you into the world of, you were researching, weren't you? Researching products?
Even before the Accutane and before all of that,
Yeah.
I actually lectured. I was more of an ingredient expert. So back then, you look at a ingredient listing and it's very mysterious and you're not sure what those ingredients really mean. And I did a lot of lecturing to physicians and medical professionals and skincare professionals. I had a lot of radio and television because it lends itself really well to talk shows. And then as time went on, I began developing associations with physicians and researchers literally all over the world. And I really started to focus on uncovering and identifying breakthrough technologies. And this is actually my fourth company.
Yes. Which I love. You started, what was the first product you brought here? Wasn't it like vitamin C?
Well,
Like
actually, the very first product that I marketed in the Jan Marini skin research line was something called Clean Zyme and Skin Zyme. And I actually had that product back from the mid 80s. And I'll kind of tell you a little story about that. So the gentleman who invented that, his name was Richard. And Richard was actually a professional ballet dancer who later went on to become a teacher. And he married a monk, and they actually bought an old monastery and they had acres of land. And he started growing papaya because he had invented a proprietary methodology and actually developed a machine that was made in Germany for being able to extract papaya, green papaya, which is about 50 to 100 times stronger than ripe papaya. And when you typically extract green papaya and manufacture it, it loses that differential of being stronger. But he found a way to keep it the strength. And he used to walk around. This was in Hawaii. And he had it processed in Florida, but he used to walk around with it on his face all day. And people called him the papaya man. And he had skin that went beyond glass skin. We hear that term today.
Yes.
Well, he looked otherworldly. Anyway.
You just started a new trend, Jan. Everybody's going to get your skin Zyme and start packing it on their face.
To actually distribute this product. And this went on for a number of years. This was well before Jan Marini Skin Research. This actually went into my second company, which was MD Formulations, MD Forte. And then Richard died. And it was kind of his formulas and everything were sort of lost. But I managed to actually break it down and to come up with a product which had better stability and was even better in the end. But that's how that started. That was my very
first product, even before you got into MD Forte.
Now, during that time, I was working with glycolic acid as an early glycolic acid pioneer. And as I always say, you couldn't buy glycolic acid at a department store or drugstore. It didn't exist commercially. In fact, I was getting it in quart jars from a compounding chemist and really compounding literally by hand my own products. And that led me to come to market with in partnership with a pharmaceutical firm, which back then was but the line was MD Formulations, MD Forte, and that was the first glycolic acid line. It was also the first line that was ever sold out of physician offices.
Yes, and you were the strength behind that happening. And then it eventually got sold to Allergan?
In
Wow.
1994. So July 1, literally the day after it was sold, I took down the MD formulation sign. I put up the Jan Marini skin research sign. And
The rest is history, and it keeps going and going and going. 1994, I think I shared with you that you were, when I went into the medical side, you were the first product I took on in 1995, I believe it was. And I was early days, girl. I was early days, and you were too, but it just was, the products were impactful. And at the time, it was the Siesta. You had, I believe you had BioClear even back then. All your benzoyl peroxides.
sunscreen.
Yeah. Oh, the
Now,
sunscreen.
all of that has evolved. All of that has evolved
Yes.
over the years, and we have so many more technologies and so many more patents, and it's continuing to. Oh boy, I've got some things on the drawing board I'm so excited about. But anyway,
I know. I know. You need to share those with us because I know that you have something you
I
can't
have
though,
one
right?
thing I can share
Okay,
because it'll be
please.
out in June. I have one thing, which is a product that's called NeuroSmooth. Now, one of the things that is very, very popular right now, something that's referred to by a lot of practitioners as baby Botox. So baby Botox is not like regular Botox. It doesn't do anything for dynamic muscle movement, like your parentheses lines or foreheads or all of that. What this is this is where they take either they microneedle or they take little stabs of Botox all over the face. And what it does is it relaxes the auricular pili muscle. Now, that muscle, when it contracts, we get goosebumps, and it can also sometimes make us flush. And it can also, over time, as we get older, with those contractions, just like the contractions that happen with dynamic muscle movement, there's a tendency for our pores to look larger and maybe our skin not to be quite as smooth. So what that does is by relaxing just that superficial sort of muscle contraction, the skin looks more baby-like and it looks smoother and it looks more glowing, and patients love it. But a
Mm.
lot of physicians will say that one of the problems is it doesn't last that long. And so even maybe if it's not lasting as long as 3 months with your normal Botox and it can be expensive. So what I did is I came up with something that's not for dynamic muscle movement, but it works on that superficial aspect. And there's a lot of other technology in there. But when you use this, I'm going to tell you within the first week when it kicks in, you get that extra smooth, that kind of glassy look to the skin. I love it. And the biggest problem I've had with this is, when I'm working with formulas and I'm going through all of my due diligence, and then we start to do testing, and I have candidates and people that I think are good testers. When they get hooked on something, then what they want, even though the product's not going to be out for a while, they are just bombarding me with they want more, they want more. I have to tell you, this is people saying I'm addicted, I'm going through withdrawals. It really has been extremely well received. I can't wait to get it to market. We are also going through, by the way, it's supposed to be here end of June. We're going through a completely new rebranding. Every so
Mm.
often we rebrand because packaging expectations change, and you have to meet packaging regulations throughout the world. And also you just want to freshen up the brand.
Yes.
But we have a new name and it's called Marini Skin Solutions.
Oh, you didn't tell me that last time. That is super cool. I like it, Jan.
we just announced this, and I have a hard time keeping secrets, but I have to tell you, part of this is because over the years, incessantly, I have always said, I don't want another product. I want a solution. I'm not like anybody else. I mean, I am like everybody else. I don't want to have acne or rosacea or fine lines and wrinkles. I want, good texture. I hopefully no discoloration. So I always say, I don't want another product. I want a solution because the average woman has over $700 in product in her bathroom she doesn't use.
Yes.
So I think this name is so much in keeping with my philosophy. So Marini Skin Solutions, we're going to start, I think, rolling that out probably around April, May. And
Just
the
in time
packaging
for
is
your new
beautiful. I mean,
smoothing
it's gorgeous
product.
packaging. Everything is, the new name. And then these Skin Solutions, or excuse me, the Nero Smooth will be out probably at the end of June. But I've got some other things on the drawing board that are just, I think, phenomenal.
Oh, this is exciting. I love that you always have stayed relevant. And I don't think you've really tried to. I just think it's your nature to get in, and you always want the next best thing. You're always looking at the next best thing because it's always out there. But what's fascinating is that some of your products, your original OGs, are still right up there with the newer technology. I mean, that's fantastic.
Well, thank you. And I always say it's kind of like, we'll never stop using penicillin. And how long has that been around? There's certain things like glycolic and things that we can improve on, but they're always going to be very relevant. And to give you an example, of all the skincare ingredients in the world, if you took everything in the entire world, the two that have been studied the most medically, one are retinoids and the other one is glycolic acid. That has the most medical data on it. And I'll tell you, in my opinion, Jerry, where things are really going, you can use all the moisturizers and various things on the skin that maybe make the skin feel a little better and a little smoother, but it's not really going to do anything to quote, nobody likes the term de-age, but to de-age the skin.
Yeah.
Really what it's about is that if I were going to put it in one sentence, it would be that your cells lose their identity and they lose their information. That's both internally and externally. So you get all of this stuff that's been programmed into your DNA since you were, at the time you were born. When you get to be in a catabolic state around the age of 18 to 20, those messages are compromised.
Mhm.
And so unless you can reverse that messaging, and what it is through your DNA and through your RNA, which is the messenger, you can't accomplish anything. That's one of the reasons why retinoids are so renowned, because they reverse instructions coming from your DNA. You have receptor sites in your skin for them. But there are some other things that I'm working on that actually will enhance that even further, that I mean are really revolutionary. And I'm very excited about that. And I wish I could talk more about it, but I
I
can't.
I know. I can just imagine what they are, though. My mind is spinning right now. I'm sure they're a signaling pathway of some sort.
Well,
Um,
it really has to do with these DNA and
mhm.
RNA fragments and how they communicate and how they message, being able to correct a lot of those instructions. And also, it's not just about correcting instructions, because the instructions can get corrected, but what happens if when they're out there, there's like a roadblock? It's like going home and all of a sudden there's a detour or something, a tree has fallen in the road or something like that. And so it's very complex, but it's breaking that down. I think um, I'm, I think this is going to be.
That's great. Merging longevity medicine with topical skincare as well.
It's in, if you don't like the term anti-aging, guys, it's skin longevity.
Hmm.
Because,
That's
if you
great.
if you live to be 95 or 100, and we're really going to be able to extend the lifespan, your skin, your largest organ in your body, has to be able to function when
Yes,
you
it
get
does.
really old. And there are skin diseases that people die of. And nobody's, we don't have it down where you can live forever at this point. However, the fact is, you don't have to look old. That's a fact.
Right. You do not. You do not. I agree with you on that. Jan, I want to get into some stuff we talked about before. And one of them is, how do I know that you had a time in your life, and I shared with you that I was part of that. I was a recipient of one of your products, which was your eyelash grow product. And that you had to stop selling that due to Latisse. And how you dealt with that was really, really impressive to me. I can't imagine your frustration. If you want to share with the audience, I was very upset as a provider selling that product and then seeing Latisse basically, I can say this, I don't know what you can say, basically steal your product that they say was their product and hijack it and make it Latisse. I was very upset about that, and you handled it so graciously, and you just moved on. You just picked up where you left off and you moved on. You didn't let it get you. And can you share a little bit of that story?
Well, thank you, Jerry. That's really kind of you to say that. And the fact is that I had to make a decision that, were we an eyelash company or were we a skincare company? So I did move on, but I will tell you, it was, oh my God, it was challenging. So when I came out, and I still have a patent. That patent was never overturned. But when I did my research and I came out did all my patent work for what it is the bimatoprost medication that you can put along the eyelash line and get eyelash growth. I did a huge amount of due diligence. Now, first of all, let me say in terms of safety, I went through a company that a lot of pharmaceutical firms use in order to get their drugs approved through the FDA. And what we found out was in our testing is that we were over 50 times below level of NOEL. Now, NOEL is the term that they use where you start to see side effects. So we're 50,000 times below that. And not only that, the study showed that even if this got in your eye, that it would go down into the conjunctival sac and it would not change eye color. Now, what happens with these drugs like bimatoprost, it's for glaucoma, is that they go through the cornea and they drop the pressure, and what in doing that, they attract melanocytes. So if you tend to have light colored eyes, blue eyes or green eyes or whatever, there is a possibility that your eye can turn brown, and it's permanent. It starts on the outer part and then it works its way in. So in some cases, I remember growing up that I had seen people occasionally with one blue eye and one brown eye because maybe they had glaucoma in only one eye. So we didn't have those side effects. And also we just had this tremendous effect. Oh my God. I had people stopping me all the time about my eyelashes because they were just out of control. And the reason I developed this, again, I say I developed things for myself because I had alopecia areata. I had a space missing in my eyelashes off and on for years. How do you can't do a comb over, you just have this big space that's missing. And so I was always trying to address that. And this was just, it suppresses the autoimmune reaction. So it had so many legs, and it was just a great product. But I knew that the FDA doesn't regulate these products, they regulate claims. So I was very careful. You'll never ever see an advertisement that we did where it said anything about growth. However, I made a mistake, and I didn't realize it at the time. In the ingredient listing, while we were doing our patent work, I called the active ingredient eyelash growth factor. So it was never in any ads or anything, but it was just identified in the ingredient listing. And so when the FDA, which I believe it was probably, this is just my opinion, it was could have been coerced by Allergan, when they went to California to decide how they were going to come after me, they have to have a port of entry. And there was really no port of entry because I wasn't making any claims for growth. I had safety studies, I had all of that. And it was that ingredient listing finally that gave them that port of entry where they said I was making claims for growth. And so what happens is when these things, when they want to injunct you from doing anything or stop you while it's being settled, um, they they confiscate the product. It's a seizure. It's called a seizure.
Oh
And
my
they go before a
goodness.
judge and they get approval. And it's nothing, the seizure is nothing violent. It's not like they come at you with guns or anything like that.
Right.
They set up an appointment, they come by and they pick it all up. And or they actually at this time they segregated it. We weren't allowed to sell it. And in virtually every state of the union, these seizures have to be completely decided on within about 10 days. But California is one of the few states in which it can be indefinite. So we dealt with this without getting any kind of clear understanding of what we needed to do to sort of rejuvenate the whole issue. And it just never really got resolved in a black and white way. However, I did come up with another product, which as peptide, I shouldn't say a peptide, it was another glaucoma medication that had been abandoned that I actually owned. And so we came up with another eyelash product. At that point, Allergan sued me. And I had to make a decision. I could have gone ahead and I had, attorneys that told me that we would prevail in court, but I saw that as being probably years. And Allergan certainly has far more funds and far more resources than I do. So I had to make a decision. And so what I did is I simply settled it and moved on.
Moved on.
And that's kind of the eyelash story.
That's the eyelash story. I love
And I
it.
will tell you, it was arduous and it was very challenging, but you don't look back. You just keep moving forward.
You just keep and you never make that mistake again, do you?
That's true. I will tell you, we even had this. I put this in a hair growth product as well. I shouldn't say the appearance of hair growth. Oh my gosh. I have in marketing on one of our walls, I have letters from celebrities in which they completely got their hair back. It was amazing. And what we found out was that if you took a shampoo, now we didn't do a shampoo, but if you took a shampoo and you just put literally one of those little tiny bottles of glaucoma in that shampoo, and you're just washing your hair and you're rinsing it off, that you could get hair growth. So I went one step better. I put it into something that you would actually rub on the scalp, combined it with something called spironolactone, which goes after the interaction of some of the hormones. And I tell you, we could have grown hair on a potato. It was amazing. It was really an amazing product.
All right, everybody, let's talk about getting that glow. Introducing Glow Girl, my secret weapon for dewy, hydrated, and gorgeous skin. And it's not just for women. I'm actually thinking about changing the name because most of my male clients use this product and they love it too. It's packed with hyaluronic acid, which basically means it's gonna lock in that moisture and give you that plump, fresh look we all love. So if you're tired of dull, dry skin, this is the game changer. It's lightweight, non-greasy, and works like a dream under the makeup. Whether you want to boost your glow or hydrate throughout the day, Glow Girl has your back. So what are you waiting for? Click the link and grab your bottle now. Trust me, your skin will thank you, and so do we.
So all that went away.
All that went away, and that's okay because now you're right where you're at, where you should be, and you're stronger than ever.
But I'll tell you something, Jerry. You know how they always say, no publicity is bad publicity. During that period of time, we were in 10,000 print articles, 500 television stations, and I was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal twice.
Yes. See what I mean? You got something, well, even though it was a hard experience, you got something out of it that propelled your business.
It gave us such awareness.
Attention.
Yeah, exactly. People knew now who we were.
Yes.
the awareness was much bigger than the company at that time. So
Oh, yeah. And they're like, wait a minute. She had a product that's Big Pharma took from her. What else does this woman have? I'm curious. I want some.
well, what was interesting during that time is that there were a number of other companies that got sued because at that point there were other companies in the marketplace, not with our ingredient. But one of them was a physician, and the company is still in the marketplace. And I can't, Revitalash.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Now, Revitalash had a kind of a derivative. So they were trying to avoid the patent. And they may have, because I think this lawsuit went on for like 5 or 6 years. But what happened is that Allergan was actually able to get an injunction against them. I don't know how many states. I know that it was in the state of California. And here's what the injunction was for. It was because they said they're profiting from being able to sell something that does basically the same thing that a prescription does, but they didn't have to go through all of the challenges and the medical data to get the prescription, so that it was unfair competition, something to that effect. And so they eventually did knock that last one down. Now, I'm not sure it was all states, but
It was definitely California, right?
definitely California. And I think it was Dr. Brinkenhoff. And I have to admire him because I'll tell you, he persevered. He persevered for a long time. And I did not have the stomach for that.
Speaking of California, how did COVID go for you guys?
Well, it was devastating for everyone. And I'll never forget it because it was supposed, in the beginning, it was going to be like, okay, it was like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And I remember picking up everything off of my desk and taking it home. And I was just devastated, not only from business standpoint, but I thought, oh my God, are we going to get COVID? Are we going to die?
Yeah.
And then I picked everything up the next day and I went back to the office. And my brilliant CEO and president, who is just a tremendous leader and a real visionary, immediately, literally that next day, put into place that we would work with resellers and that we would monetize their patient base. So we would put on to their patient base, we would put on seminars focusing on various subjects, and then we would fulfill the product, because for a long time in California, somebody couldn't even drive up to a practice and have the product brought out to them.
Mm-hmm.
There was just no contact at all. So we fulfilled it. And not only did that keep us in business, and we were able to stay in business, by the way, because we do some over-the-counter drugs. So we were considered to be
Essential.
they use essential. But it not only allowed us to keep in business, we didn't lay off one person, but I got so many letters from people literally saying, you saved my business. I was able to make my rent. I was able to feed my kids. It's the only way I could have done it because I couldn't go to work. I couldn't do anything. And so that was so gratifying. I can't tell you. So we ended up getting through COVID. And then, of course, when COVID was over, the second whammy was the supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
Because the demand, of course, became uncorked. But we had such a terrible time getting supplies because companies were not geared up. And then also, I think we had some things like where there were some dock strikes. At one point, we had product that was out at sea for weeks and weeks and weeks, if you remember that.
Yes.
And we had to get things air shipped in, which cost a fortune. So it was very challenging.
Yeah.
But we got through it.
You guys got through it. I love it. Are you guys going to stay in California, your headquarters, or?
Our headquarters is in California, and we don't have any plans to change that. You never know, but I mean, I have a lease that's still ongoing. So
So this will be your home still. This will be your home still. speaking of retail, let's speak quickly before we wrap it up to the esthetician or the nurse or the provider, really about the importance. I feel the missing link that providers and estheticians have is their ability to realize people are there to see them for advice on retail. What can they use at home, and not to be afraid to pass on that recommendation in retail. Retail is very important for the patient also at home. Can you speak to that a little bit?
You know, Jerry, I'll tell you, you just hit on something that is so challenging. I always say product that sits on a shelf doesn't sell itself. And if I line up 10 practices and I ask the staff, I say, so tell me, how do you start the conversation about product? I'll tell you what they'll say to me. One is, well, what don't you like about your products? And the answer usually is, I don't know. I think my products are just fine. Well, how would you change your products? I don't think I'd change them. I go to, Walmart or Target, and they have a cosmeceutical section, and I pay less money, and I think it works as well as anything else. So what that does is that actually kind of puts that patient sort of on notice or on edge that the discussion is going to be about buying something.
Yes.
And what are you going to do? Are you going to argue with that patient? So it shuts the conversation down.
Yeah.
And what I always tell people is, number one, the question that you ask, and I ask this question myself every time if I'm working with a celebrity, a world famous doctor, I don't change it at all. If there was something you could change or improve about your skin, what would it be? Now, usually people give you their number one concern. Maybe it's acne, maybe they have large pores or discoloration. And then I'll say, well, what else would you like to change or improve? And I typically get about 3 or 4 different concerns. That's the runway. And so my job at that point is to address those concerns and educate that individual on why they have those concerns, what's behind those concerns, and then to make a recommendation. And I always say, think about how you'd feel about your skin if you can address every one of those concerns. And that's what we do. I mean, there's no cure for acne, but we get complete total clearing. There's no cure for rosacea, but we manage rosacea.
Mm-hmm.
There's no cure for discoloration, but we can get the skin clear. We can manage discoloration. I can go on and on. And so it's about those concerns. And so many times people are very resistant because they have all this product and they don't necessarily trust what that individual is telling them. They just think about it selling product. This is not about selling product. The consultation is so important. It's the delivery system.
Yes.
It's a vehicle for delivering product. And I can't stress how important that is. And I'll tell you something else, Jerry. We don't have time to get into this, but back in the early days, my second company was a kind of a consultation company, if you will, that started because I was doing some radio and television and people were contacting me so much. And I ended up working with individuals. And I saw 2 people in the morning and 2 people in the afternoon. And I was actually mixing my own product. And I didn't see 10 people a day or anything like that. But at the end of the first year, I was going at the rate, this is back in the 80s, of over $1 million a year after cost of product, strictly doing the consultation process. So that's one thing that we try to emphasize with practitioners and physicians, that if you have a structured approach, which sets up a way of doing business, your new employees can step into, they can visibly see this is how you do business. And also it keeps everyone else targeted. This is what everyone does. It's a very systematic approach and you can measure it. And it's also a way to measure progress and to measure weaknesses and strengths. But I can tell you, it's unprecedented. I talk to physicians all the time. And it's not about $1 million a year. It's about $2 to $4 million a year after cost of product.
It's out there and it's possible. The fear is bigger than diving into it, though. And that's one of the key things that I like to talk to estheticians about and nurses when they come and mentor or shadow me. That's one of the big things I tell them to do. I see the fear in their eyes when it comes to actually giving credible advice for a program or plan for the client or the patient. It is key. You owe it to them to give them your recommendation through the belief systems that you have and the products that you carry. And I also recommend that they go with a company like yours that is a little bit more or majorly more science-based in their founding with trials, and also the support. You need to have a product that is going to support you. When you don't have the answer, they can help you get the answer. So it's just building a team and a foundation of support and outcome for your patient that they deserve to have. They walk in the door and see you. You better give them something to use at home.
I couldn't agree more. And I have to tell you, there's so many times that I work with a famous influencer or a celebrity, and I'm doing their consultation, and sometimes they've used our products. And one of the things they say to me, well, how come nobody ever recommended this to me? Because what we do is we tend to be overly conservative or count the money in the other guy's pocket.
You just nailed it. They count the money in the other guy's pocket. You don't know what they're willing to do. You have to offer it to them.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story if you've got time for this. Okay, this years ago, this is back MD Formulations, MD Forte. So, the market is really starting to pick up in terms of doctors carrying product. And I'm out there carrying my little bag. And so I made a sales call on a dermatology practice that was in kind of an area of Northern California between Santa Cruz and Monterey that was mainly kind of farm area and a lot of itinerant farm workers. And so I pull up to this practice, and it was in a courtyard, and it was sort of old and run down. And I remember it was a warm day, and sitting in the waiting room talking to these two physicians, and they left the door open and it had a screen door. And you don't see screen doors much. So we're sitting there talking, and they're saying, well, we really want to carry your product, but we just don't think our patients can afford it. So just about then, this woman comes walking across the courtyard, and she is heading toward an accounting office. And she looks over and she sees me and she waves. She's, hi, Jan, how are you? Well, it turned out that she was actually somebody I had seen in my consulting days to spend a lot of money on product. And so the doctor said, that's so-and-so. We know her, and that's a good example of somebody that cannot afford product. And I said, well, I got news for you. She spent almost $1,500 with me. Again, this was back, now we're going into the late 80s, into like 1990, 1991. And they were astounded. So the fact is that we choose what we want to spend our money on.
Mm-hmm.
And there are places like Korea, and we've all heard this, where the average income is much less. And yet, what they call boys, which are actually in Korea, these are young men, they refer to them as boys, but young men that actually use an average of 15 products a day on their skin. And females, at least as much, if not a lot more. So they choose to allocate that part of their income. It's what people, and it's if you really believe that it's going to address a concern, and you have confidence that you can address that concern. Individuals want to be able to take advantage of that. And you're absolutely right. That's why they're there. Why should the person at the counter in the department store or in the drugstore or someplace else, why should they be giving them advice?
Yep. Or the question, here's the question most providers or estheticians get by their patients. Is there something else I can use besides this that I can buy at the grocery store? The answer is no, there is not.
Exactly. And, you set people up for it's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, I'm going to continue to work with you. I'm checking back with you in 4 days. I'm going to work with you. Your lifestyle changes, your skin's going to change. We're going to modify, we're going to add to this, but we're going to address every one of these concerns. Patient gets excited when they hear
They
that.
do. They
They
do.
want that. Why do you think they've been buying all this product all these years?
Exactly. And their counters are full of products they don't use. So give them something that's going to work. They'll be loyal to it and they'll use. And don't be afraid. Just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Jan, I've got a couple questions for you. Beauty questions, lifestyle, longevity questions. All right. What time do you get up in the morning?
Well, it depends. Now, my biological clock, my just natural biological clock goes from about midnight to 8 a.m. But over the years, no, I have not been able to sleep in until 8 a.m. unless it's a weekend. So I could be getting up at anywhere from 4 o'clock to, let's say, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Do you work out?
Yes, I work out every single day. And I might come home and I might feel like I'm kind of really exhausted. But you know what somebody told me once who was an expert in this? And they said, if you feel exhausted, it's mental, it's not physical. Your body has been sitting all day. You need to work out. And so I work out no matter what.
Love it. And do you make sure you get enough sleep? Are you a sleeper?
Now, I
Good.
used to pride myself that I, could get by on 4 hours a night, or sometimes I didn't sleep at all. But no, these days I am a sleep athlete, and that's what you need to be, a sleep athlete.
How do you manage stress?
Well, I think I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing. First of all, I have an absolutely fabulous husband. He's literally the king of husbands. And I'm obsessed with him. I'm madly in love with him. And so he provides a very, very stable environment. So a lot of
Beautiful.
love, a lot of support. So that's really important. If I have to travel, he travels with me. So I take my home and my heart with me. And the other thing is that I decompress at home. One of the things that I do is I do computer games. So when I say computer games, I'm talking about word games, things that involve me, that also really tax my brain. And then I have, one of the things I have to tell you, I love fashion. I absolutely do. And from a more creative standpoint, I like really creating with fashion. So it's a hobby of mine, and it's something that I find to be very relaxing and very involving. Um, and just other things that I do, and friends, and having a social life.
If you were on a desert island and you could only take one product with you, one skincare product, what would it be?
Well, it would be BioClear, glycolic, salicylic, and azelaic acid. But if I were to cheat, I would say we could consider it one product, one SKU. It would be the box system, which BioClear is.
Oh, I love you. I loved how you wedged that right in. One product, the box system. I love it. I love it because you always need more than one, right? Because you need their sunscreen when you're out there too.
That's right. And it's hard for me to say, because when I come up with different technologies and things, and I just think, how can I have lived without this technology? So it's hard when I have to narrow it down to one. But
What advice would you give a new esthetician that her eyes are really big and round and she's like, wow, I just got my license and I feel like I don't know anything. I don't know where to start. What advice would you give her?
so first of all, estheticians are no different than physicians, surgeons. They go to school,
Yep.
and first thing they think about is, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get out and I'm going to operate. And you think that's where your focus is going to be, and that's also where your revenue is going to be. And so an esthetician is the same way. Now I'm going to do facials. And the fact is, it's very labor intensive. If somebody cancels, you don't make any money. If you get sick, you don't make any money. It's no different than a physician. If a physician gets carpal tunnel syndrome, they can't operate. If you get carpal tunnel syndrome, and if you want to go on vacation and you want to go away for a week or two, you make no income. And this is one of the reasons why there's such a high divorce rate in medicine, because Mrs. Doctor says, we never go anywhere. We never go on vacation. And doctor says, yeah, well, when I leave, I still have to pay all of the salaries, I have to pay all the rent, and I don't have the money coming in. And plastic surgeons, for example, they may charge a lot. However, they have to recreate their practice every 90 days because somebody comes in, they have a consultation, they have surgery, and then they go away and they don't do it again next month. They're not, a lot of them are sitting by the phone waiting for the phone to ring. They're not all, superstars. And so what you really have to focus on in your practice, and we know this from COVID. COVID slammed us to the ground. If we haven't learned,
Right.
you really have to have non-labor intensive income.
Yes.
And do you know, Jerry, that of all the skincare that people spend money on in the US, only around 1% to 2% is spent in the professional market. Every dollar that somebody spends, even if they're coming to see you, maybe only 1% to 2% is sent in that practice. So there's this huge opportunity, even though the skincare market is growing faster than any other segment, there's a huge opportunity. And you have got to focus on revenue.
Absolutely.
If you've got that non-labor, and I show people this all the time on how to, and I said this earlier, that they can literally, it's an unprecedented revenue potential without it being labor intensive.
I totally agree.
And you know something? You don't have to be an expert in being able to do lymphatic drainage or all these other things. What you need to do is you need to be able to talk to people, to draw them in. And the best way to be an expert is to ask questions.
Yes.
When you're asking questions, people assume you're a whole lot smarter than you might be, and you know a whole lot of information because you wouldn't ask the question if you didn't have an answer. That's what they assume. And so it's being able to do that process. And that's what we really help people and train them in a structured process, because it is scary if you don't know the process. It's not about putting somebody under a lamp or looking at them and saying, oh, your skin is dehydrated or it's oily or it's whatever. It's that process. It's so important.
It is important. And I'm glad you highlighted that. So, and that's what your company is really known for, is you take people under their wings, you get them educated, and you don't disappear on them. And they can have that support and that passive income that is there when they go on vacation. Because people still need their cleansers, they still need their products for their skin health.
We have a large education team. We have over 50 sales reps, but we also have a large education team and a large marketing team. And that's the thing, is that we really want to support people to be successful.
I love it, Jan. You're great, Jan. Thank you for spending this time with me and the guests and the I love the podcast because it'll speak to the patient too, the client, because they need to hear these things and they're in the know. And so many people are curious about you personally. You have a big cult following, and I love you. I consider you a friend.
Thank you.
You're adorable.
Thank you so much. You're so kind, and it's so fun to talk to you and everyone who is watching. I wouldn't be here without you, so thank you.
Love it. And I'll leave everybody with one thing. One of my favorite OG products of Jan's is the SPF antioxidant 33. If you haven't tried it, I know summer's around the corner. You got to try this one and find a provider, go to Jan's website that you can go visit and see and help guide you through her products. And if you can't do that, if you don't find anybody, they can do that on their website. I'm going to put her website in the link so that you guys can get in, dive in, and take a look because it's amazing. And I can't wait to try your new product in June. New products are launching. She's very excited about it. And I'm very excited about it too. So,
You know, we also have retail sales specialists and technical support. So actually people can call and get all that information.
there you go. Thanks for filling in the gaps, Jan. All right. Peace out, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the Beauty Outlaw. Thanks, Jan, my friend. And at the end of the Beauty Outlaw, Jan doesn't have anything over there, but at the end of the Beauty Outlaw, Jan, we have to do a toast. So I know, do you have some water over there? Anyways.
I don't. It's on my, this is my like interview desk, and my other desk, it's way over there. But
I didn't want to leave you out of the toast though, Jan. So here's to the Beauty Outlaw, new friendships, great skin forever. Peace out, everybody, and join us on the next episode of the Beauty Outlaw. Jan, you're going to join us on the next episode too, right? You watch. All right. Bye, everybody.